Hello, ghosts and ghouls. Welcome back to Cassara's Tales from the Coffin. Our tale today is called Are You Scared? It's a terrifying story about revenge. This was my original concept for the short horror story contest I entered, but it was too long for the requirements, so I wrote something else. However, I like how this one turned out, so I decided to share it with all of you. Listeners, be warned, this is a gruesome, torturous story. One with underage drinking and swearing, so if you have trouble with those themes or elements, this may not be a story for you. It is 10 p.m., July 4th, 2018. Megan and her friends are in the woods laughing and drinking. She sits down on a log by the fire Jacob has made and takes a swig of bourbon. It burns on the way down, and she coughs and bursts out laughing. Do you think Courtney will get the weirdo here? She's so fucking creepy, Megan says through giggles. Jacob wraps his arm around her. I hope so, then the real fun can begin. She's the life of the party, he chortles, throwing a bottle of beer to Fred. Everyone laughs as they hear footsteps approaching. The group looks up and sees Courtney walking towards them with Lilith in tow. Courtney looks uneasily at the group, wondering what they're planning this time. They've been torturing her since elementary school because of her name. Granted, Lilith does dress in black and dyes her hair blue that fades to purple. What does she expect? Courtney ponders, shaking her head in annoyance at Lilith's behavior. Lilith has her head down, her black hoodie covers her face. The clerk taking it as fear, they immediately start taunting her. Are you scared, Lily? Megan chimes sweetly, trying not to chuckle. George throws a bottle at her. He misses and it crashes at her feet. Lilith jumps, terrified of getting cut. He bursts out laughing. You can't honestly be afraid. You're a freak who likes dark things. George reels, hooting, taking a swig of his canteen. Lilith keeps her head down, too afraid to look at them. Courtney leads her over to the group and has Lilith sit next to her on a nearby log. More like dead things, Courtney chimes in, trying to fit in with her new friends. She refuses to look at Lilith, knowing her friend must hate her. I'm sorry, Lily, but you deserve this for being so odd. We used to be friends. I don't understand what happened to the bubbly girl I knew in elementary school. You got into metal music, wearing black, reading vampire novels, and binge-watching horror movies. Then you had to go and start dyeing your hair blue and purple, wearing black eyeliner and lipstick. You scare everyone. People think you're a killer. Courtney thinks to herself as she grabs a beer from Patty. Everyone laughs at Courtney's remark. Perfect analogy for the creep. Courtney, you're a genius, Patty snickers. Are we going to tell her why we brought her here? Megan's still giggling with tears in her eyes. She nods at Jacob, indicating that they can begin. Jacob gets up and grabs Lilith around the waist. He carries her despite the struggles to the circle they drew earlier. The others follow behind him in circle symbol drawn into the soil. Jacob drops Lilith into the center and takes his place at the head of the emblem. Everyone lights their respective candles and begins to chant in hushed voices. Their voices rise as Lilith starts to cry. She looks around, trying to find a way to escape them. Fear overtakes her as the chanting begins to subside. The wind picks up, removing Lilith's hood from her head. Tears of mascara are streaming down her face. Her eyes widen in terror. When their voices ascend into silence, the candles begin to extinguish rapidly, one by one, around the circle. Nothing happens for a few moments, until Lilith's head falls to her chest. Everyone stares at her, wondering what has occurred as she sits lifeless. Everyone bursts out laughing, rationalizing Lilith is playing, trying to scare them in return. Courtney nervously stares at her friend's unmoving body, terrified that something terrible has just happened. Fred walks over to her and shoves her as hard as he can. Lilith falls over onto the cold ground, lifeless. Megan screams as everyone else stares in horror. What the fuck is going on? This was a joke. She's not supposed to be dead, George announces, freaking out. Patty covers her mouth in shock. My parents can't find out about this. I'm not going to jail. She turns around and slowly starts to walk away, then runs into the forest. Megan follows after her, along with Courtney. George stares at Jacob and Fred, then looks in the direction the girls took off in. I'm with them. Fuck this, he says, running after them. Jacob and Fred exchange glances, then look down at Lilith's body. Her eyes are staring up at them, making them uneasy. What do you want to do about the body? Jacob finally asks Fred, looking away from Lilith's gaze. I say we bury her in the woods. If the cops ask us if we know anything, we'll lie. Tell them we never saw her and don't know where she is, Fred announces as he walks towards Lilith. What's going on? You can't bury me. I'm alive. I'm right here. Why can't I talk? Help me! Lilith screams from within her head, unable to utter a sound or move a muscle. You're fucking sick, man. I don't know what else we can do, though. I mean, if they find her out here, something might lead the police straight to us. Our DNA is all over here. Unfortunately, our best bet is to bury her. Jacob shuffles his feet, unnerved by the decision. Fred grabs one of the survival shovels near the fire that he brought with him that his parents take with them camping. Fred throws the other shovel to Jacob, and they commence digging the hole. Jacob closes Lilith's eyes before helping Fred shovel a hole. Once they are sure a deep enough grave has been burrowed, it's already early morning. They dump her body inside and quickly scoop the dirt on top of her. After they are sure she won't be identified anytime soon, Jacob and Fred depart away from each other. Fred quickly texts everyone that he's cleaned the campsite. And Jacob goes home and enters and throws his muddy clothes into his hamper and shoves dirty clothes on top to cover them up. Curls onto his bed and passes out. It is September 2020, 9 p.m. It's been 2 years since the death of Lilith Clark. Senior year has just started for Courtney, Jacob, Megan, Patty, George, and Fred. It's a Saturday night, the first week of school. Jacob has invited his friends over to his parents' house for the weekend, since they are away on business. Everyone is huddled in the living room, wondering why he asked them there, when they haven't spoken in 2 years since that fateful night in the woods. Jacob scans the room, gulps, and sits down on the coffee table to give him the vantage point of seeing everyone. I know you all haven't heard from me since freshman year. Jacob stops and grabs his shaking hands. Everyone looks at him puzzled, unsure what has him so spooked. He tries to start again. I've been receiving strange phone calls from someone I don't know. They leave messages in an inaudible voice. They ask me if I'm scared. Jacob looks down at his hands, terrified that he sounds crazy. A voice quiet, barely a whisper, speaks up after a few moments of silence. I've been getting them too. It's been freaking me out, Courtney squeaks from behind Megan. Jacob looks up and locks eyes with her when he notices everyone else's face has become ashen. The reactions indicate Jacob and Courtney aren't the only ones receiving the calls from the stranger. He gulps, unsure who it could be. Fred breaks the unnerving silence with snorts and chortles. You should see your faces! You're all hilarious. I can't believe you're terrified. It's just a prank from some asshole who wants to scare us. Courtney bites her lip, wraps her arms around her, and hangs her head, feeling foolish. Patty lets out a sigh, examines the room, takes a deep breath, and exhales quickly. What if it's that killer from that creepypasta story? I mean, Gunnar said his best friend Kyle's friend was murdered by him. The room explodes in gleeful amusement at Patty's realization. Thank you, Patty, for breaking the tension. You must have been joking because there's no way you can believe that. Megan giggles despite herself. She shakes her head at her friend's idiocy. I can't believe that story scared you. Gunnar was lying. He was hoping it would scare you to get in your pants. You must be denser than I thought. Fred teases, hooting at her obliviousness. Patty turns a bright red and looks down at her feet in shame. It's possible. You never know. There's always some truth to legends. Just look at the Slender Man story. Megan glances over at Patty. That's a little different, though. Everyone starts arguing over whether the Slender Man is real or fake when all their phones begin to ring. The whole group stops mid-sentence, pulling their phones out of their pockets and purses. They stare at their phones in shocked horror as they see the name Carrie come across their screens, while their phones continue their rings. The group stares at Courtney, speculating how her sister is calling them all at once. Courtney gains the courage to answer the phone. Her hand shaking as she puts the phone to her ear, Courtney's sister starts leaving a message, believing the voice message has been activated. 10 p.m. Courtney, I'm terrified. I've been receiving horrifying messages asking if I'm scared. I hope you're safe. Don't come home. Carrie's voice shakes across the line. Courtney clears her throat, causing Carrie to stop rambling. Courtney's face turns a new kind of pale as everyone stares at her in anticipation. Hey, Kara, we've been receiving them too for a few months now. I didn't want to worry you. I figured you would just think it was a prank. Carrie interrupts her sister. What's going on, Courtney? I wish you told Mom and Dad about this. We could have gone to the police. She sobs into the phone. Courtney sighs, wanting to comfort her sister somehow, but unsure how. I don't know anything either. I'm at Jacob's with Megan and the others. We're trying to figure it out. Courtney pauses, trying to get her thoughts in order. Carrie, listen to me. Don't let anyone in the house. Do you want to come to Jacob's house, or would you rather I come home? I know Mom and Dad are at some business meeting, but they should be home soon. Courtney offers, wanting to calm her sister's nerves. Carrie's line goes quiet, causing Courtney to panic. Carrie, do you want me to come home? Courtney begs into the phone. No sound is heard. She stares at her phone, wondering if the call had been dropped. Courtney notices that Carrie is still on the line. A deep dread comes over her. She can feel a knot in the pit of her stomach. Courtney keeps repeating her sister's name over and over again. Carrie's voice is finally heard, but it doesn't sound right. In a monotone voice, Carrie utters, Courtney, stay where you are. It's better that you do. Courtney can hear wood breaking in the background. I love you, Carrie breathes before the sound of the door being broken down could be heard. Realizing what is happening, Courtney rushes towards the door and grabs her coat. Getting ready to leave, her friends in unison rush into action, barraging her with questions about what is happening and if Carrie is all right. Courtney ignores them and instead starts to open the door until she sees something out of the corner of her eye, causing her to pause. A figure is seen in the distance, walking towards the house. Terrified, Courtney drops the phone. She jumps and it clatters to the ground in front of her. Tears stream down her cheeks as she shakes from head to toe. She begins to scream. You've won! I'm scared now. I'm really scared. It's what you wanted, right? Courtney crumples to the ground, sounding as though she might break from the fear. Her friends stare at her in shock, unsure what to do. After a few moments, Courtney manages to calm herself down enough to grab her phone and shove it into her jacket pocket. She hangs up and runs to the nearest window to check the lock. What are you doing? What's going on, Courtney? Megan asks, putting a hand on Courtney's shoulder nervously. Courtney rushes to another window. Someone's coming. We need to lock the windows and the doors. I don't want them to come inside, she yells, rushing to the next window. 11 p.m. The group helps Courtney lock all the windows. As she walks back to the front door, she notices through the textured glass in the wood, a figure is walking up the stairs to the front porch, up to the door. She slams the lock into its place and backs away from the door. Jacob shuts the lights off of the house by accessing the app on his phone. A loud knock is heard, triggering everyone to jump when laughter breaks out on the other side. The group stares at the door in shocked horror upon realizing it's not a man at all, but a woman. Hearts racing, the room empties as each person runs out of the place to find a good enough hiding place that will buy them enough time to call for help. Jacob turns on his flashlight on his phone and makes his way into the basement. He hides behind the washing machine. Fred runs into the pantry and hides behind boxes of food. Patricia, George, and Courtney run upstairs. Loud banging can be heard on the front door as a disturbed, "Are you scared?" echoes out. Megan dashes under the stairs and crawls to the far back, hoping the darkness will conceal her presence. Upstairs, George races into a bedroom and hides inside a closet. He pushes some clothes in front of him as he squeezes into the back of the walk-in. Courtney sneaks into the bathroom, opens the small closet door, and climbs inside. Patty goes up into the attic, opens the wardrobe, and clambers inside. She closes the door behind her, then creeps into the back. Her hand touches something soft, causing her to pull her hand back quickly. When nothing moves, she chuckles at her foolishness. She pulls the fur coats on top of her, hoping it will conceal her. Courtney, in her hiding spot, leans up against the back of the closet. She almost falls backward as the panel moves. Courtney moves the panel out of her way and scrambles inside. She props the board back in place and leans against it to make sure it stays. Who could it be at the door? Who's been leaving us those strange messages? I wonder if Carrie's okay. Is everyone else safe? Courtney's thoughts are interrupted when it dawns on her. How did that girl make her way from my house to Jacob's so fast? We live on the other side of town. Courtney pulls her phone out of her jacket pocket when she notices she has a new voice message. Her hand tentatively hits play as she brings it to her ear. Carrie, listen to me. Don't let anyone in the house. Do you want to come to Jacob's house, or would you rather I come home? cornea's mouth hangs open as terror runs down her spine. A cold dread washes over her as she lets the phone fall into her lap. How is this possible? I clearly remember talking to Carrie. There's no way this was a message. Questions with no answers overwhelm her, as tears well up in her eyes, overflowing down her cheeks. Meanwhile, downstairs, the laughter has become more sinister as the pounding on the door has intensified. Megan is trying to stay calm as her heart pounds in growing thumps against her ribs. The being has become tired of knocking, and the door flies off the hinges and across the room. Megan hears the blow of the door impacting against something in the distance. Footsteps enter into the living room. The figure scans the entrance, looking for movement. Megan tries to turn on her phone to send a text to her parents. As she clicks contacts, the phone vibrates in her hand, causing her to drop it. The sound alerts the girl in the living room. Megan tentatively picks up the phone. She sees unknown caller scrawled across the screen. Answering as she carefully brings it to her ear, a voice laughs. "Are you scared?" the menacing tormentor inquires. Midnight. Megan gulps, too terrified to answer. A jarring squeak from the closet door beneath the stairwell opening is heard. The phone drops from Megan's hands, afraid the being has found her. Something moves the jackets that were hiding her from view. Megan yelps, knowing she's been found. "I found you," the girl sing-songs, giggling. "Are you scared now?" Megan turns around to face her attacker. Her flashlight beam falls on the figure's face. She screams in alarm. Bright purple eyes glare at her as a broad smile comes across its face. Lace tights, combat boots, and a Lolita dress adorn the attacker. Something about the girl looks familiar to Megan. Do I know? Before she can finish the statement, the being grabs her and pulls her out of the closet. The girl throws her into the living room. Megan lands on the coffee table. Shards of glass rip through her skin as her jugular is pierced by the metal statue. Her mouth twitches in a silent scream as she bleeds out. The figure steps out of the closet, standing over Megan. She lets out a drawn-out sigh of disappointment. "Aww, you're dead already? And I wanted to play some more." A low buzzing sound attracts her attention. She walks over to the source and finds Megan's phone. An evil grin peeks her mouth as her eyes narrow. Picking up the phone, she searches the contacts for number, then clicks the call button. 1 a.m. Jacob jumps at the sudden sound of his ringtone. What the hell? I thought I shut my volume off. He quickly turns off the volume as he looks to see who's calling him. Megan's name flashes across the screen. Pausing, he wonders why she's calling him. Did she call the police? I heard something upstairs. Sounded like a brawl broke up out there. My parents are going to be so pissed at me when they find that mess. I hope Megan's okay. She's probably calling us to tell us it's safe to come out. Maybe you should knock the bitch out. A wistful grin appears on his face despite himself. He answers when he realizes Megan couldn't hurt anyone. As he brings the phone to his ears, "Are you scared?" pierces his calm. Jacob's heart quickens as he chucks the phone away from him, not thinking about the noise it would make. Cold sweat on his neck drops beads down his back. He shivers, straining to stay perfectly still as footsteps above him are heard. Shit, I'm so fucked if that bitch looks back here. He can't see where the phone fell in the darkness. Jacob's ears prick up, listening intently for approaching footsteps. Silence ensues as he sits, waiting for any indication that he's been found. Soft footsteps slowly descend down the stairs of the basement. A thud sounds as the intruder lands on the cement floor. Jacob can hear her walking around, searching for any sign of life. He closes his eyes in anticipation, wondering when she'll spot him. The girl walks by Jacob and goes deeper into the basement, further away from the washing machine. A sigh of relief releases itself from Jacob. His hand rushes to his mouth, worried the sound alerted her. Bang! Crescendos out as a cabinet topples over. "Are you scared?" echoes out from the dark depths. Footsteps make their return. Jacob can see a shadowy silhouette appear nearby. It walks to the washing machine and halts. Closing his eyes, he leans against the back of the device. In an attempt to conceal himself. "Are you scared now?" The female sing-songs, willing Jacob to make a sound. Silence consumes him as the cellar became colder. Jacob hugs himself tightly, hoping to warm himself, waiting for any indication that the woman has left. Minutes continue to tick by. as Jacob sits in a stalemate with the invisible presence. The sensation of something dancing across his skin, a strange crawling feeling, causes Jacob to jump out of his hiding space. Trying to get whatever is crawling on his arm off, he bumps into something. "Watch it," a female whispers near him. Jacob squints his eyes, trying to see in the dark. "Megan, is that you?" "Shh, she might hear you." The voice sounds like Megan. "Who else would it be?" she says, gently pushing Jacob against the wall. Megan pushes Jacob's legs apart with one of hers and presses her body into his. Jacob looks over her body, a smile comes across his face. "I don't think this is the time, but damn, she's hot." "I never thought she was the type." His arm wraps around her waist, inviting her in. Megan's hand moves from his shoulder and slowly traces down his chest as the hand holding his tightens. "Are you ready to play?" Megan's voice changes to the voice on the phone. She giggles in his ear as the bones in Jacob's right hand start to snap under the tension of her hold. The girl kisses Jacob, muffling his screams. She breaks the kiss as the girl bends his arm, breaking it. "Why?" Jacob screams as the woman laughs maniacally. "Why not?" A cold response Jacob wasn't expecting. She releases his broken arm and traces a finger down his chest. Something sharp punctures the flesh in his left side. He moans in agony. Twisting and turning, the object moves inside Jacob's tissue. Trying to hold back the screams, Jacob bites his tongue, the taste of blood filling his mouth. The sharp knives begin to slice and pull. Jacob can hold back no longer. His piercing cries echo out around him from the stone walls up to the floor above. 2 a.m. Meanwhile, upstairs in the pantry, Fred hides near the shelves of food. Downstairs, you can hear Jacob screaming in agony. What the fuck is going on down there? Do I go save him? He thinks about it, then decides against it. No way am I risking my life for him. He would do the same for me. She's too busy dealing with him anyways. I have plenty of time to leave and get help. Fred gets out from his hiding place, makes it to the pantry door, and slowly opens it. Silence is heard downstairs. He takes his chance and runs towards the dining room. Something grabs him and pulls him backward. His head hits the floor with a loud thud, knocking him out. When Fred finally gains consciousness, he can't see. No light grates him, but it smells musty. Trying to move his hands, Fred can feel a rope tightly binds them to a rough surface. Where am I? This seems like the basement, but why would I be down here? Are you scared? A female voice says from the darkness with a chuckle. A faint light flickers overhead, providing little light for a few seconds. Fred turns his head, trying to take in his surroundings. When he sees Jacob hunched over against the wall nearby, the light flickers off again, leaving Fred in darkness once more. Fred tries to speak to Jacob, hoping his friend is still alive. However, no one answers apart from the laughter echoing back from the female. The light flickers back on, shedding light on Jacob's fate. Fred gasps in horror at the sight of blood all over the floor. Entrails swirl between his legs, his arms at his side. The light flickers out again, his footsteps come closer. Metal clipping sounds can be heard, inching closer. Are you scared now? A sweet voice says inches from Fred's face. The sound of shears snipping near his ear causes Fred to jump. Giggles and an earthy smell envelops him as something sharp glides across Fred's arm, but doesn't pierce the flesh. The light flickers overhead, showing the female's face. Fred locks eyes with her before the light fades out again. She looks familiar, but it couldn't be. Cold steel squeezes Fred's finger on his left hand. The blade slices through, snipping off the digit. The female voice giggles in glee as Fred yells in pain. He starts hyperventilating as he goes into shock. Fred soon loses consciousness and blacks out, only to waken to more gut-wrenching pain, torment, and maniacal laughter. After what feels like several hours, Fred regains consciousness. A puddle of blood is seen from the corner of his eye, from his head resting on his shoulder. I think playtime is over. You don't look so good, sweetie. The woman comes closer, allowing Fred to get a good look at her. Shocking realization comes over him. Fred lifts his head, the room spins, he closes his eyes. You died. It can't be you, he mumbles. Her eyes narrow in disgust as she plunges the garden shears into his chest with enough force to puncture his heart. She backs up, looking over her work with a devious smile. The woman cuts Fred's restraints, causing his body to fall to the floor with a meaty thump. She shakes her head in distaste before she starts her ascent up the stairs. 3 a.m. Courtney hears glass shatter downstairs. Immediately, she checks her battery life. Screams make their way up to to her. A tear rolls down her face as her lips quiver in terror. Courtney presses her ear against the cabinet wall, but only hears silence. I don't know if the police are going to make it in time. I have to at least try. My battery isn't perfect, but I can't just sit here waiting to die. Her shaking fingers press 911. An operator answers, asking for details. Courtney shakily answers all the questions before hearing the dreaded beeps of her battery, declaring its low energy. The connection is soon lost. Courtney lets out a deep sigh as she gently rests her head against the panel. George sits in the closet, feeling the pressure in his bladder becoming unbearable. He tries to adjust and focus on something else. Running footsteps, then a loud thud echoes out from the floors below. What the hell's going on down there? I hope Jacob, Fred, and Megan are all right. Did they follow us upstairs? Or did they choose to stay downstairs? George dreads the answer as silence once again follows. He tentatively reaches into his pocket, pulling out his phone. George tests the power before sending a cautious text to check up on everyone. Patty feels around in the dark, hearing a vibration against the wooden panels of the wardrobe. Her pinky hits a rubber substance. Patty moves her hand back towards the sensation and finds her phone. Stumbling to find the button, the bright light illuminates the darkness. Her eyes narrow at the sudden brightness. Are you okay? Patty reads across her screen. She quickly sends a response with a single letter, Y, to indicate that she was. Staring at the screen, impatiently anticipating the fate of the others. Screams once more are heard throughout the quiet house. Courtney pulls her legs up to her chest and wraps her arms around them. Resting her head against her arms, she begins to sob, unsure what is happening. George shudders at the sound, checks his phone for responses, but only sees the message from Patty. Worry creases his brow, wondering whose screams he's hearing. Patty can't hear anything from the attic, but feels relief knowing George is okay. George lifts his head suddenly at the sound of footsteps start on the floor below. Steps slowly make their way up the staircase. A sick feeling makes a place in his stomach. Something glides against the wall as someone makes their way down the hall. Doors begin opening as someone searches each room. Was it the wrong place to hide? The thought bursts into his deliberations, making the queasy feeling worse. His heart beats against his chest violently as the door to the bedroom whips open. The doorknob hits the wall with a loud bang. George can see the dark figure search the room through the slats in the door. Something metallic glints for a second from the little light coming in from outside and through the window. George gulps hard, trying to hold back the bile welling up in his throat. A hand grabs him, dragging him out into the room through the closet doors. George manages to kick his attacker, causing them to stumble momentarily. Taking the opportunity, George gets to his feet. He punches the woman in the face. Her head snaps to the side. Giggles cause George to pause. Before it's time to block, the woman backhands him with something hard against his head to spin, causing his head to spin. Spinning out blood, he stumbles, trying to keep his footing, as another blow hits him in the stomach. George falls to one knee, keeping his head down. He pushes himself up with both hands. Warm liquid trickles down George's leg as he realizes the impact caused him to urinate. Embarrassment over his lack of bodily function floods him. He closes his eyes, awaiting the humiliation. Instead, the assailant doesn't wait to hit George again with a metal object. He manages to block the attack just in time as the woman pulls her hand back to hit him again. George sees an opening and acts on it. With a kick, he sweeps her leg out from under her, causing her to stumble. George shoves his attacker, but she doesn't falter. In response, the woman pushes him in return, causing him to fall to the ground. As she steps close to him, George grabs her legs, hoping to pull them out from under her so they would be on equal ground. The assailant kicks him hard in the face, knocking him out. When George finally comes to, he feels something wound tightly around his neck. Frantically, he grabs at it, trying to get his hands between whatever's suffocating him. His fingers can't slide between the thick cable digging into his throat. George can feel the cable getting tighter the more he struggles to get free. Horrible snickers are the last thing George hears before blackness takes over. The intruder lets out a pleasurable sigh as George takes his final breaths before leaving the room to investigate the floor further. 4 a.m. Courtney can hear the fighting taking place only a few rooms away. George should be able to fend her off. He has mixed martial arts skills. His father enrolled him in wrestling at the age of 8, then boxing at the age of 13, and karate. I'm sure he's okay. After a while, the room goes quiet. Then loud bangs as someone rummages around echo out. Courtney scrunches up her face, wondering what is happening. More noises are heard. The sound of cable being ripped out of the wall is heard. George must be trying to tie her up. Good idea. I hope he'll let us know that it's safe to come out. Struggling, banging, and after a few moments, quiet once again follows. An uneasy feeling takes up shelter in the pit of Courtney's stomach. Approaching footsteps soon follow in the hallway, getting closer to the bathroom. Courtney gulps, her eyes widening as the door slowly begins to open. Not a sound is heard except the footsteps in the room moving around until something causes the being to pause. The steps quickly rush out of the room and head in the opposite direction. Where are they going? Courtney wonders, when it dawns on her that the person must be going to find Patty. How would they know where Patty is? Courtney scrunches her brow in deep thought. Unless they're using the phones. Patty can hear footsteps coming up the stairs to the attic. She received a text from George explaining that the intruder is tied up downstairs. As she is about to open the wardrobe door, something doesn't feel right. Patty decides to wait before coming out of her hiding place to ensure George has made it out okay. Sending a tentative text, Patty awaits a response, only to hear a nearby vibration indicating George was nearby. Feeling relieved that her friend has made it to safety, she opens the door and slides herself out of her safe haven. Raising her head, Patty sees a female form standing in the center of the room. Patty's eyes dart around the room looking for George, but he's nowhere to be found. During Patty's scan of the room, she fails to see the figure move. The intruder slams Patty's head against the mirror hanging on the inside of the wardrobe door. Glass scatters the floor. Patty's hand instinctively goes to her bleeding face. The assailant slams Patty's head against the mirror again and again until Patty passes out. As Patty lies unconscious on the floor of glass, the intruder stands over her with her head tilted sideways. They kneel down and pick up a shard of glass, twirling it between their fingers before shoving it into Patty's side. The woman picks up another piece before slamming it into Patty's arm. Patty wakes up screaming from the pain in her abdomen and arm before another shard of glass penetrated into her leg. Patty tries to get away from the woman by using one of her good arms to try and drag her body away. Her torturer watches with amusement as Patty continues her attempt at safety. The intruder gets to their feet and gets to Patty in ease. With one last shard of mirror, the figure jams it through Patty's throat. 5 a.m. Courtney hears the commotion upstairs, but in the distance she can hear sirens. Why did it take so long for the police to get out here? I called them hours ago. I know the city is busy, but this wasn't a prank. Courtney gets out of her hiding place, feeling rescue is on the way. As she squirms out of the cabinet, she makes her way out of the bathroom and into the hallway. Looking around, she scans the dark, looking for any sign of the intruder. Feeling like the coast is clear, Courtney makes a run for it towards the first floor, when something grabs Courtney's shoulder and forces her to turn around. She faces the shadowy figure standing in the hallway, except sunlight has started to creep in through the window, shedding some light into the hall. Courtney's mouth hangs open in acknowledgement. A tear rolls down her face, seeing the blood-soaked girl before her. I'm so sorry, Lily. We didn't mean for you to die. We thought since you were so creepy, we'd conduct some bogus seance to freak you out. Courtney sobs. She wipes her eyes with the back of her sleeve. Lily's eyes narrow as the sirens grow louder. A smile creeps across the girl's face as she embraces Courtney. Lily slips George's phone into Courtney's pocket and places the shears into her hand as loud voices echo from the floor below as police officers begin entering the home. Courtney jumps at the sound, breaking Lily's hold, and turns to look towards the sound. Courtney looks back to the hallway. She sees it is empty. Courtney lets the police inside the house. Courtney greets the police inside the house, tells them what happened, too distraught to notice the blood-covered shears in her hand. When they handcuff her, Courtney begins crying and yelling, unsure why they are taking her away. Once the police officer has her in the vehicle, they explain to her that she is a suspect of murder. As the police cruiser pulls away from Jacob's house on the fogged window next to Courtney's head, words start to appear. Are you scared? I do apologize for the length. That's the end of my story. Let me know what you think of this. And if there's an idea you have for a scary story, or if there's a scary story you'd like me to read of one of yours, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button below. Stay tuned till next time. Take care, everyone.